Norway is often held up as a global leader in sustainability, an environmentally conscious nation of fjords, forests, and forward-thinking policies. But if you included its exports, it would immediately become a top 10 carbon-producing country. Its Scandinavian neighbours also enjoy robust, eco-friendly reputations, but we will see how they too are exporting millions of tons of carbon and damaging the environment in other ways. And while Norway portrays itself as an upstanding global citizen, like claiming to be one of Ukraine's biggest backers in the fight against Russia, well, the truth is more complicated. On the world stage, Norway presents itself as something of a green superstar. Over 80% of all new cars sold there are electric. Hydropower provides nearly all the country's electricity, and they've banned the sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2025. To many observers, Norway looks like a role model. Clean, responsible, environmentally aware. The kind of country that sets an example for the rest of us. And it's true, those policies are genuinely in place, and they are impressive. Norway's per capita emissions are around 7.7 tons of carbon per person, below the OECD average, and less than half that of countries like Canada, Australia, or the US. It funds reforestation projects, invests in public transport, and talks big about sustainability. But the problem is, the reason Norway can afford all these initiatives is oil. Norway is one of the richest countries on Earth. Its sovereign wealth fund is the largest in the world, now worth over $1.6 trillion. That's over $300,000 for every Norwegian citizen. And that wealth wasn't built on exports of wind turbines or electric cars. It came from crude oil and gas. Since the 1970s, Norway has been pumping oil from the North Sea. In 2022 alone, Norway earned over $170 billion from oil and gas sales. But there's a problem. Oil produces emissions, lots of them. The oil that Norway exports is burned. That's the reason for drilling it. It's used to power factories, planes, cars, ships, heaters, air conditioning units, and power plants. And burning oil releases carbon dioxide. Norway doesn't deny that, but none of that carbon shows up in Norway's emissions figures. Because the oil is exported and burned abroad, the emissions are counted elsewhere. Norway gets the profits. Everyone else gets the carbon. And it doesn't stop there. Norway is also a major exporter of timber. Every year, it exports around 7 million cubic meters of wood. That timber may be used for construction or paper or furniture, but most of it will eventually degrade, rot, or be burned. And when it does, the carbon it contains is released. But again, just like the oil, because the timber is exported, the emissions aren't counted against Norway's carbon ledger. Ironically, Norway actually counts its forests as a carbon sink. That's right. Norway chops down trees, exports the carbon, and then grows new ones, claiming the reforestation as a form of carbon offset. They get the carbon credit, while someone else gets the eventual emissions. And this isn't just a Norwegian thing. Sweden and Finland do it too. Sweden's forests absorb around 40 million tons of carbon each year, on paper. But Sweden also exports timber, pulp, and biofuels, none of which get counted in Sweden's own emissions. Finland, meanwhile, claims its forest industry is sustainable. But it's also one of the most intensive forest harvesters in Europe. The same carbon sleight of hand is happening across the region. They export emissions and keep the offsets. Scandinavia also engages in other industrial activities that carry a heavy environmental cost. Finland and Sweden are big players in mining rare earths and metals used for everything from batteries to mobile phones. These operations are energy intensive, create pollution, and often rely on carbon-heavy processes. But because they're considered to be part of the green transition, they tend to escape scrutiny. And in 2024, Norway became the first country in the world to open up part of its national seabed to commercial deep-sea mining, although coalition politics has recently delayed the issuing of permits. Despite this, Norway is still the poster child for ethical government and responsible capitalism. It ranks number 2 in the UN's Human Development Index, and it's often praised for its foreign aid and its support for Ukraine. Norway has contributed around €5 billion in aid to Ukraine since the start of the war, including military and humanitarian assistance, and it recently pledged a further $7 billion. That is generous, especially for a country with just 5.5 million people, and it has been lauded internationally for its contribution. But what doesn't get as much attention is that while Norway gave 5 billion, it made a windfall gain of 108 billion euros from soaring oil and gas prices caused by that same war. So while Norway gave or pledged a total of 12 billion to Ukraine, it represents only a small sliver of its windfall. But yet, it is still held up as being a model global citizen. Which brings us to the heart of the matter. The Scandinavian model is often held up as an enlightened third way, somewhere in between capitalism and socialism, offering prosperity and freedom as well as equality and fairness. But it's not a model the rest of the world can simply copy. And actually, it's better that other countries don't even try to. Countries like Norway, Sweden and Finland are blessed with vast territories, rich natural resources compared to their small populations. Norway is the clearest example, sitting on immense oil wealth with just 5.5 million people to share it among. But Sweden and Finland also enjoy resource advantages that are far from typical. To their credit, these countries have shared this wealth quite fairly among their citizens. It hasn't been used to enrich an elite. Additionally, they have built inclusive institutions. They've invested in education, upheld the rule of law, and avoided the corruption and mismanagement that often come with natural riches. Their success is not just about luck, it's also about good governance. But that doesn't change the fact that their generous welfare states are powered, to a large extent, by carbon and commodities. Other countries simply cannot replicate this. They would have to impose greater tax burdens on individuals and profitable enterprise to achieve the same. So while Norway may look like a green champion on the surface, it isn't the beacon of enlightenment we should all follow. In truth, it is, by some measures, one of the biggest polluters on Earth, exporting hundreds of millions of tons of carbon each year while accepting none of the responsibility. Let me know what you think about carbon accounting. Do you think it's right that emissions are only the responsibility of the countries that burn fossil fuels? Or do you think the countries that export them, or the countries that import goods that have been manufactured using carbon-intensive processes, should share the responsibility? A link for the next video should be on your screens now. Just click to keep watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and follow. Thanks for watching.